Hey guys, Chris from FireSQFitness, and today you're going to get an interview I did with Annette Zapp from FireSQFitness. Now, she'll run through her bio in the interview, and if you've been following myself or Annette for any period of time now, you know that we do a lot of stuff together. We've done Devote December together, we've done Spring for Change, we've even presented together at the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support Symposium, but I wanted to interview her today because we have very different roles in the fire service. I am on the ambulance and she is in charge of an engine. And so I wanted to get her perspective and her point of view on what's been going on for the past 3 months, both with herself, her crew, and with the fire service in general. So we talked about her officer point of view of how stuff's been going, how the coronavirus pandemic has derailed her training or how she's had to adjust her training based on it. And then we played a little bit of a fun game with a reactionary statement considering the potential second wave of the pandemic in the future. So I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciated her honesty and her being willing to answer these difficult questions. I'll hopefully be doing more of these in the future. So let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon.
It's fine. Hey everyone, welcome to Tailboard Talk, and a very special tailboard talk because we're on video and we're trying out something new. I wanted to interview people and get a little bit different of a thing going for a little bit now, and no better person to start off with than Annette Zapp, who I've worked with several times with Devote December, Spring for Change. We've done the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support Symposium presentation stuff. So I wanted to have her on and talk about the coronavirus thing, because I know just even the sound of it is wearing already, and there's even more controversy than there was 2 months ago, but it's important to talk about it from a first responder point of view. So very quickly, Annette, for those of them who may not know you, give me like a quick 30-second down and dirty intro and we'll get going on this thing.
30-second elevator speech. I'm a 16-year veteran of the Lyle-Woodridge Fire Protection District. I hold the rank of lieutenant, and then I own and operate FireSQFitness, which is a health and wellness company dedicated to firefighters worldwide. Boom.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. Much faster than the typical thing that we go back and forth on. Okay, so the reason I wanted to interview you and talk to you about this stuff is because you are, like you said, an officer. You're an engine officer in Lyle-Woodridge, suburb of Chicago. Still, even though you're not in an ambulance or you're not working in my city, you're still considered busy, I suppose. But I wanted to get your point of view because we've spoken before about how the coronavirus thing affected me. And we've gone back and forth multiple times through text messages and everything, just kind of go back and forth. But I want to ask you from an officer point of view, try to put together what you observed in your crew and yourself from an officer standpoint. So you get to watch the guys in the ambulance and you get to assist once in a while, but they're living a totally different life than you did on the engine, which is what the roles are. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing for you. But what did you observe and kind of watch happen with your crew over the course of the past 3 months?
A lot to unpack, but it was super interesting because you would think that it might have torn us apart. You know, everyone's stressed out, everyone's on high alert, and you would think that it would have pulled us apart. But it actually, very much like the events of 9/11, sort of brought us closer together. So people were more apt to share their experiences, their feelings. Several of my crew members, unfortunately, lost friends and family to the COVID virus. We, in fact, at Lyle-Woodridge did not have or have not yet had anyone affected. We had a few people that might have been potentially exposed, but we didn't have anyone affected. But what I did see was that stress that I talked about before became almost unbearable at times because, you know, your normal run-of-the-mill call, say a full arrest, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of pulling together of resources, a lot of people having to pull their weight. And now add to that the fact that we have to get all up in our get up with our gowns and our face shields and our glasses and our masks and all of those things to work this full arrest. It just became exhausting. So what I saw, especially in my medics, was they were just tired. They were beat down and they became really challenged keeping a good attitude coming to work day after day. I guess that would be my observation. Your perspective is probably a little bit different, but that's what I saw.
No, I mean, that's essentially the role that I had and a group of us had were on the ambulance. And so if you started 3 months ago and your role was on the ambulance, you've been on the ambulance probably every single day till today and then ongoing. So one of the things I noticed, and maybe you can shed some light on this too, is that it used to be no big deal to run 8 to 10 to 12 calls and kind of breeze through it. And some of them were heavier than others, but 8 to 10 to 12 call day was just a day. And now it seems like 2 to 3 calls is like, holy crap, I could really take a day off right now. I mean, is that something you saw with your crew also?
We have the advantage that we have enough medics that we can rotate. And so we did a really good job of rotating our medics off because like you said, it was exhausting for them. 2 to 3 calls would be overwhelming. The other thing that we tried to do, we always try to take care of our medics in terms of making sure that we're cooking for them, making sure that we're kind of taking care of the brunt of the house chores and things like that. But we tried to step that up even a little bit higher so that, we might plan a meal that if the medics got a call at the beginning or in the middle of the meal, they could actually package it up, take it with them, and then, eat it somewhere out of the ambulance, somewhere, maybe at the hospital, somewhere like that. But we just tried to pull together and just take really, really good care of them. And I think it helped. But like you said, I think it also would have helped to get them on a rotation where they were working 24 on and like 72 off before they came back. It's just not feasible.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from an ambulance officer perspective, that stuff absolutely does help. And it is great. And that's one thing that we do really well in my department is the ambulance doesn't shop. They don't cook. They pitch in for house duties and stuff, but it's usually like to just go clean that window thing or like take this trash out to the garbage. So that division of labor, knowing that they're going to have so much more going on in the day is absolutely huge. So good job doing that. And please keep that up for your medic's sake. All right. So let's shift now because a lot of times that we spoke after shift, it changed. 3-4 months ago, 6 months ago when we were talking, it'd be like, okay, today I have this going on. I got to go see this department. And then there were a handful of days where we would shoot each other texts in the morning and it'd be like, I'll just talk to you tomorrow. Like today is a loss. I'm writing today off. The day after shift, it's a loss. So, and that's different for a lot of people because like I said, 8 to 10, 12 calls next day, no big deal. Right. So how did your training, how did your day after routine, how did that get affected by this whole thing?
I want to circle back to just summarize that to say sometimes just being a human or humaning was hard after a 24-hour shift. But you know what? I did a couple of things. I switched up. I hired a coach recently because I just got so tired of writing my own programs. Not that I can't, but when you write your own programs for so long, you just become your own echo chamber and you don't really progress. So I hired a coach. But one thing that Hunter does that I really like is that he simply plans that the day after shift is pretty much going to be a wash. So he'll program conditioning. There's always conditioning and kind of recovery programmed into that, but it's optional. And I've been lucky enough to get it done most of the time. So that's one thing. I just did not count on training hard the day after a shift. The other thing is I just planned on those days almost being a waste. And then if I was able to get something done, it was a bonus. And for me, it's a terrible, terrible mental trap for me to have a list of things to do that I don't get done. So it was better for me to not have a list of things and then have bonus things get done and think of it that way. And then just that ability to reach out to you and to my other friends and to my family and just say, I'm okay, but this day I'm not humaning. So I'm not fit for human consumption. Just leave me alone today. And that was great. But I'd like to actually circle back. Do I get to ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So our situations, you already pointed it out. They're very different at work, but they're also very different at home. I don't have a family at home. I don't have a little one. I don't have a husband or there's no one that lives here with me. So how did you handle that with Katie and Nathan?
I was a freak show for a little bit and probably still am. I mean, but it was tense, very tense because, there were times in a shift where I would get dressed up in the isolation stuff 4 or 5 times for confirmed patients, or highly suspected patients. And then you get a phone call 2 days later of like, well, that person that had no symptoms, they actually tested positive too. And so it was tough because it was a threat at work, it was a threat in the station, and then it's a threat at home because now you're threatening other people and maybe not even knowing it. This is obviously before the big controversy over the asymptomatic transmission and that whole thing. But all we knew was that there was this invisible thing that you could very easily catch and then very easily give to people without knowing it, and they don't know how bad it is yet. And so it was tough. There was some very tense mornings, more so than usual. But it just, I was absent a lot for the first, because I live 10 minutes from work. So I was absent for the first hour and a half of the day. Most days I would come home. And then Nathan's still thankfully sleeping 3 to 4 hours over the course of the day, maybe 2-hour naps if we're lucky. So then I would just be useless as well. Like I wouldn't plan on a workout that day. But it was definitely a struggle, and it's starting to become a little more contained, it feels like, or manageable, because we've changed our PPE protocol for the 100th time, but now it's just absolute. I mean, if anybody has any symptom at all, we're putting the full thing on, which is a huge hassle, but it is actually a good peace of mind because you're in the maximum level of protection against this thing that you don't know if it's a threat or not at the moment. So it's a good with the bad situation, but it was not cool. It was not a fun time. It was I would say it was by far the most challenging time as a medic I've had. And I think I was certified as a medic in 2005. So since then, this really made me want to go become a plumber or something else. This was not a cool time. So that actually leads into my last little part right here, which is a kind of a bummer. We'll see how it goes. But I just want you to react to this statement, and you can spin off it as far as you want. How does this make you feel? We're not waiting on the second wave of this thing. We're actually still on the first wave, and we haven't peaked yet.
You know what? Initially, I was very afraid of this whole thing, and I found that I was very unhappy because I was afraid. And so I just changed my mindset. Wendy Lund changed my mindset to be, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to do what the Illinois government and the federal government says I should do. But I refuse to go to the grocery store and be afraid of people. And, of course, I'm going to keep my distance that I'm supposed to keep, but I am not afraid to walk by people. I'm not afraid of people. However, selfishly, my life has changed a lot in that I can't travel. I can't go to my conferences. I can't present. I can't see my firefighters at my departments. I have to see them remotely. And so that selfish feeling, I don't like that. And because it hasn't peaked, and because we haven't had a second wave, and because we don't have a vaccine, and because we don't have herd immunity, I don't know how long that's going to last. And I think that's the feeling that I hate the most. When do I get back to the life that I like so much?
Yeah, and I agree. And that's the thing. I wanted to ask you that about your mindset when you said, I stopped making lists and planning on stuff the next day, and you're going to change your mindset. Do you feel like that's a durable change that you can make? Or is there a fuse ticking on that thing where you're like, okay, if I'm not doing my workouts again after shift 3 months from now, we're going to have some real issues? How do you feel about that?
I think the workouts, that's going to be fine because it's programmed very specifically. Like I have a moderately intense workout on shift days. I have an optional bonus type workout the day after. And then my hard workout is the day before shift. And I'm making really good gains. I'll flex on you again. So that I think is tenable. That situation is tenable. What I am not enjoying is not being able to get together with my friends, having to meet you in a parking lot somewhere and throw t-shirts at you. Like, I don't like that. I hate it. And the fact that we don't know the unknown, how much longer is that going to last? That's what I hate the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish I had, so most of the stuff that we deal with is back pain, knee pain, or hip pain, or something like that. And we pretty much know the resolution to it and expected outcome. And that absence of knowledge is definitely it takes something away from you. And like we've learned before, that whole fear is, or anger is caused from fear, and fear from the unknown and all that stuff. So I wish I had something good to wrap this up with. There's some kind of positive to wrap it up with, or at least like a reassuring thing. The most I can tell people is that it's better than it was, for sure. I feel like it's better than it was, and it might get bad again, but we all know kind of what we're capable of now, because a lot of us have made it through it successfully, and a lot of us are still struggling with it. And so I hope that we can continue pushing forward. And even if it gets bad again, there's a lot of resources out there that maybe we're hesitant to take still, but they're out there. So what would you have as kind of a reassuring thing? Now let's go back to you being an officer, and you're leading our crew now of everybody watching this. What would you tell us to get us through the day at least?
I'm going to go back to, remember Dr. Chuck's presentation at Peer
Oh, yeah.
Support?
Oh,
is
yeah.
it a kitten or is it a lion? So
Yeah.
meaning, is it really, really important what's happening, or is it just a little minor disturbance, a blip on the radar screen? And one of my friends used the analogy recently, like, because I used it, is a kitten or a lion? And then they said, I don't know yet because it's dark and I just hear something scratching.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where we are. But if we can just keep in mind that, yeah, this is a change, and maybe it's never going to go back to completely normal, but it's a temporary change, and we're going to get through it because we're strong AF, and we're going to come out on the other side. And just keep in mind, it's probably more than likely a kitten, or it might be a raccoon, but it's probably not a lion.
Yeah. Either one, kitten or raccoon, I'm totally cool with either way, because neither of them are coming in the house, so it's not a big deal.
All right, guys, so that was it. Thank you so much, Annette, for humoring me and answering those questions, and thanks for bouncing the tough one back at me. I hope you guys appreciated how honest we were trying to be with that. I know it sounded a little bit dire towards the end there, but we tried to bring it back to a positive note. But it really is just kind of the weight of the situation we're going through. So thanks again. I hope you guys liked it. Shoot me any questions or comments you have. Of course, I'd love to talk to you. And as always, be a force shifter.